So good evening, everyone. As Jenny said, my name's Sarah Balfour. I'm one of the beef consultants within the SAC livestock team. I'm actually based up in Murray. I work out of the Elgin office. Just a bit of background for you. I've been with the livestock team now for nearly 3 years, and previous to that I worked as a general consultant with SAC Consulting. Background from a family farm with a suckler cow herd at home, run alongside a small pedigree Limousin herd, and from my own sons I've got 6 pure pedigree British blue cattle, which is my own little hobby as well. So tonight, calving, the key topics I'm going to focus on are getting ready for calving, your calving kit, stages of calving and when to intervene. I'm going to touch upon that and really leave our vet Tristan to sort of get into that and when to call the vet out and when the vet might be needed. We're going to talk about post-calving care for the cow and the calf, and also talk about colostrum management. And that's one of my own cows there in the picture, and I'm happy to say that was a naturally born British blue calf as well. So we'll just get started. The first thing that comes to mind for me with calving is just to stop and think about health and safety. Your safety must come first, and you'll see there that there's on average 2 fatalities per year on farm associated with working with livestock, and in particular calving cows. That's 2 people that are lost each year. So it's really just to sort of ring home that don't take any chances. All cows, can be dangerous at calving, and more often than not, it's the ones that you don't expect to sort of turn on you, or she's always been the quiet cow, or she's never done that before. So just always be on your guard at calving. And again, when you're working with cows at calving, whether they need to be restrained for either sucking a calf, help with calving, just make sure that that cow or heifer is adequately restrained behind a calving gate in a cattle crush. The idea being to minimise the risk of injury to yourself, the vet, and also the animal. So getting ready for calving, the calving kit. I would say make sure that you're prepared, because calving really it's the busiest and can be the most stressful part of the year. So it's a good idea just to have made a check, gone through your checklist and made sure that all your calving equipment and the essentials are ready. Quite often, the first calf of the season comes earlier than you would expect. So as I say, just make sure that all the essentials are at hand and they're good to go. So your calving aid, your calving jack, make sure it's fully working. It hasn't had any damage from the year before, and it's clean, it's disinfected, it's good to go, and make sure you know where it is as well. Your calving ropes, again, make sure they're disinfected, you know where they are, and they're ready for use. And it may also be an idea just to have a spare set handy, because if you've been up during the night calving a cow and then you end up having to assist another one early in the morning, it's always good to have a spare set, and these sort of things they can get lost in the moment as well. If you're using a calving gate, again, make sure that it's clean, it's ready for use, and again, it's set up ready, because you don't want to have to be moving about gates in the middle of the night or in a rush while you're waiting for a vet to come out, for example. A halter and ropes, that may be another thing that you want to have handy.
I heard you.
Your surgical loop, arm length gloves, antibiotics and drugs, so your medicine cabinet. For folk that are calving once a year, so spring calving, for example, it may be that you're not needing to look for these things again until the following year. So and you may not be in the medicine cabinet all that often. So just make sure that you've checked it recently, that your medicines are in date. You've got a good selection of sterile syringes, needles, and any drugs that you may need for calving, antibiotics or anti-inflammatory drugs, all prescribed by your vet, of course. Iodine is another thing that you may want to have in your medicine cabinet. Disinfectant, colostrum. We're going to touch upon colostrum later on, but colostrum really is key for calving and getting your calves off to a good start. So make sure that you've got a stock of colostrum ready. There's lots of good artificial products available out there, and try and get the best one that you can with the highest content of IgG, and that again will get your calves off to a good start, but we'll discuss colostrum later on. Your stomach tube, your calf bottle, the teat, again, make sure that that's clean, disinfected, and it's ready for use. Another thing which I find is quite handy to have is to keep a notebook or a diary. It's something that's really handy to look back on, because calving comes and it goes, and things can get forgotten about, such as a cow that maybe she had poor colostrum, she didn't milk very well, or she maybe was a bit nasty at calving, temperament issues, and these things can get forgotten about till the next year. It may be that for any reason she might have had a bad calving as such, and you don't want to put her back in calf, but it's good to keep a note of what happens at calving, and for cows maybe to look back on. For those of you that are technologically advanced, you may be using a calving camera. Lots of people are nowadays. It may seem like a really silly thing to say, but make sure the lens is clean and that it's working properly before you start calving. Hygiene and cleanliness, that's really key for calving. So I would say that, make sure that your calving shed or your pens, they're well bedded with clean, dry straw bedding. Just remember, when that calf's born, its navel is a direct opening to the bloodstream. So if that calf's hitting the ground on a dirty bed and wet bed, and there's all that bacteria in there which can get into the calf's bloodstream. So making sure that calving pens or your calving shed is well bedded just gives them that extra bit of protection. And you'll see in the pictures there, they're all in a deep layer of straw. Again, wet, dirty straw, it harbours bacteria, and you want to get those calves off to the best start possible. So have them in this, in a real good bedded pen or shed, not just for the calf as well. Clean bed for your cows means that their udders, their teats are going to be clean, so that when that calf takes its first suckle, it's not ingesting any dirt or dung or any dirt that's come from dirty bedding. And a deep layer of straw just helps those little newborn calves maintain their body temperature, and they can get nice and snug in and keep themselves warm. I'm just going to touch on the stages of calving, because I know that we've got a vet going to be joining us and talking about this, and this is certainly far more his area of expertise than mine. But generally you can split calving into three main stages that we can see there. So stage one is really the start of calving. So you'll be looking at between 2 to sort of 6 hours for this stage to be taking place. And during this time, your cow, your heifer, is likely to seek isolation from the others within the calving shed. She's probably going to go away and find a corner or start sort of finding somewhere, for her to have her calf. She's likely to be restless. She could have signs of pain, so kicking at her belly, swishing her tail. She may arch her back because she's starting to have contractions. The cervical plug is released at this point, so discharges that you may have seen, they're likely to become more like liquid. She's probably going to go with her tail out, and you'll just know that animal is starting to calve. Stage 2 can take anything from 30 minutes to 4 hours, and it depends from cow to cow on whether it's a heifer or a cow. And this really is what we're referring to as the labour. So the water bag has burst, that's been expelled. That's what determines the end of stage 1. The cervix is now fully open, and the water sac plus the calf is now in the birth canal. We should be seeing more forceful contractions. It's likely that the cow might be lying down, getting back up again, going back down again, pushing, and really trying to get that calf out. And then stage 3, the final stage of calving, generally happens within 12 hours, all being well, is the expulsion there of the afterbirth. Generally, I would kind of say as well, if after a couple of hours the cow hasn't really shown much interest in eating or licking her afterbirth, if it's just sitting there in the pen, then I'd be inclined just to take it away, because it's just going to be left sitting there. It starts to sort of harbour bacteria as it sits there. Cow and calf can slip in it, and again, if you're going into your calving pen to do any work with your cow, then it could be a bit of a trip hazard for yourself. So when to intervene at calving, as I said, we've got one of the local vets due to join us, and he'll certainly talk through when's best to intervene, when to get the vet out to help with calving. But when it comes to helping and assisting, you don't want to intervene too early. But again, you don't want to leave it too late for obvious reasons. You might risk losing your calf or the cow or heifer as well. So as a general rule of thumb, over 8 hours for the first stage of labour there. The water sac's visible for 2 hours, but there's no progress. Straining for 30 minutes, but making no progress. Stop trying for 15 to 20 minutes after a period of progress. So she's been progressing well, she's getting on with the job, and then she suddenly stops and doesn't push and doesn't try anymore. And again, if there's obvious signs of fatigue, if she's just generally tired, and if you can see that the calf's tongue's swollen, or there's severe bleeding coming from the cow or the heifer. I think it's just worth highlighting there as well that really no one knows your cows better than you. You know your herd, and you know the cows that may be likely to need help. You'll know the ones that you maybe helped the year before. You'll know what your bulls like to calve, etc. And this is a general rule of thumb. These points I've got on the screen just now, but you'll know yourself. If a cow generally she gets on with the job and she manages every year, and then this year she doesn't, then it is likely that there's something going on that she maybe needs help with. At any of these points, that would be the time, if you're not confident or you're not sure, to call your vet. The vet should never be seen as a last resort for help. I very much think that the vet is a calving tool. They're there to help. And I'm quite sure Tristan, will agree with that. And the best scenario for the vet is to come out, get a living calf, and the cow or the heifer be fine afterwards. I would just say that before calling the vet for help, just to go in, have a feel yourself, just so you can give them a general idea about what's going on. And maybe the feet are crossed over. The calf might not be in the right position. It could be coming backwards. It could be a twisted womb you're dealing with. It could just simply be that there's just no room, or that cow or heifer hasn't opened, dilated fully enough to calve herself. And as I said, we've got Tristan on hand. He's one of the local vets, I believe, and he's going to talk us through his experiences and when to get the vet out, what he's seen when it comes to calving. Just want to highlight this poster here. It was produced through funding from the university's Innovation Fund. It was part of the calf crop series of meetings. It was produced as part of those meetings and should have been sent to every farmer in Scotland. If you haven't been sent one and you would like one, or you would like another one, please let us know using the chat feature. We can certainly get one of these sent across to you. It's a really good reference for any for anyone that's calving, but it's particularly good for folk that might be calving 1 or 2 cows once a year, or might not have a lot of experience with calving cows. It's a real handy guide for when to investigate, when to intervene, and I'd also suggest that it's a good place to put the vet's number down onto, where everyone knows where the vet's number is, so that if you need to make that call in a hurry, everyone on the farm knows where the contact number for the vet is. So just moving on, post-calving care for the cow and calf. So pain relief. This is for if you've had to calve the cow, if it's maybe been a long, difficult calving, you may want to consider anti-inflammatory drugs, pain relief for your cow. And again, if it's been a sort of harder pull than you would have liked, you may want to think about pain relief for the calf, because that little calf's been through quite a lot in its its first few hours of life there after having, after having a pool, and then it's come out and it's in a whole new world with its surroundings, and then it's expected to get up and suckle. But again, we'll leave the vet maybe to cover a bit more on drugs and treatment for cows and calves post-calving. Dipping or spraying the navel with iodine, that's something that is done quite often, again just to protect that navel and just create a barrier just to stop any bacteria getting in there. You should look after the cow after calving. You sort of monitor her, look for any bleeding, milk fevers, or her retained afterbirth. So if she's not managed to clean herself, there may be a problem there. Bed the cow and calf on plenty straw for cushioning and warmth. So warmth for the calf, cushioning for the cow, especially if if unfortunately she's had to have a C-section. It's a major operation, so you just want her to be as comfortable as possible. And again, it's quite crucial just to keep an eye on her after such a big operation. Again, link back to a C-section there. If a course of treatment is prescribed by your vet, then it is essential that you complete the full course. And just generally ensure really that your cow or the heifer is bonding with her calf. They've got that good bond, and they're getting on okay. Again, this is another one of the posters that was produced through the UIF funding. This one focuses on the care of the cow and the calf post-calving. It talks a bit about resuscitation there for the calf once it's been born, if it needs a bit of help. And again, it's just a really good handy guide. So if you don't have one of these and you would like one, please let us know and we can get a copy sent across to you. Colostrum. So colostrum management. Are your calves getting enough? Calves are born without any immunity. So failure to uptake those antibodies from the colostrum, it leaves them at a high risk of infections. And a study carried out by the University of Glasgow last year actually found that 1 in 3 calves don't get enough colostrum. And those calves with inadequate colostrum and they're not getting enough, they're actually 2.5 times more likely to die in the first 4 months of life. So it just really rings home how important colostrum is. It's key, it's really vital to get them off to a good start. The best scenario for your calves getting the right amount of colostrum and getting a good intake is that they've had no assistance at calving. So the cow just gets on with the job, calf's born naturally, no fuss, just gets on with the job, and has a good suck reflex. And you can see that your calf's having a good hard suck for about 20 minutes. And at that point, you should be quite happy to think that that calf's getting enough colostrum. You'll see in that photo there, that calf's not that long born. She's been cleaned off by her mother and she's away up there looking for the teat. And the dam's colostrum from the cow or the heifer, that'll always be the best for the calf. Just to cover colostrum just a little bit further, it really is vital, and calves need that colostrum as soon as possible after birth to get them off to the best start. Most calves, and in most cases, they will get up and suck themselves, but you may want to consider giving colostrum to calves that have been born by an assisted calving, so you may have had to help them, even if it's just a small, slight pull. Those calves that have got a real poor suck reflex, it may be that it's more difficult for them to latch onto the teat and suck naturally themselves. And if it's twins, I'd always advise giving twins colostrum just to make sure that each of those calves have had enough, because there will tend to be one that's the bigger, the stronger, the greedier one. If you're not sure that calves have had enough colostrum, or with the case of twins that you just want to give them that extra bit to make sure that they're getting enough, then I would say tube feed the calves with 3 litres of the dam's colostrum after birth, certainly within the first 2 hours of birth. It's always best, if you can, to give the calf colostrum from the cow, from its mother. And if you can, providing it's safe to do so, again, going back to safety, as long as it's safe to get that cow in behind a gate, the calving gate, or into a crush to get colostrum from her, that's the best option. But again, think safety first. Don't put yourself in any dangerous scenarios just to milk colostrum from a cow, because it may not always be possible. Powdered colostrum and the artificial colostrums contain fewer antibodies than the fresh colostrum and the cow's own colostrum, but it's far better than giving no colostrum or not making sure that that calf's had enough. And again, as I said earlier on, just make sure you go for the one with the highest level of IgG, and that's got the best and the highest amount of antibodies in there for you to get your calf off to the best start. Some folk do take colostrum in from neighbouring farms or from dairies, and if you are doing that, just consider the health implications of doing so. Diseases such as Johne's can be picked up from infected milk and colostrum, and if you've got, for example, a high herd health, or you know that you don't have any health issues within your own herd, then you may not want to risk taking in colostrum, you know, from another herd. That's really all I've got to cover just now, as I know we've got Tristan, our vets, on hand to cover the veterinary side of things. But thank you very much for listening, and I think we're going to have a question and answer session later if there's anything else you'd like more information on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. There are just a couple of quick questions before our later session, just linked to some of your presentation, if that's okay.
Yeah,
so I don't need to scroll miles back in the chat to find them later. So the first question is, somebody was told to take the cow out the crush for calving in case she goes down. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, it depends on, I would say, the setup of your, you know, of your crush. There is always a risk that, yeah, once you put the calving jack, the machine on, and you start putting on strain, that yeah, she can lie down, and she can get stuck in the crate. It can be difficult to get her up. If possible, that's where your halter and your rope when your calving kit comes in. If you can get a halter or a rope on that cow, be able to restrain her by the halter tied into the crate, but so that her back end is out the crate, so that if she does go down, she's going to go down out with the crate. If that makes sense, if you can picture that. And of course, there's these great things now that we have, the calving gates, which are you know, they're just perfect for restraining the cow, but they've got that quick release chain, so that if you think the cow is going to go down, you can quickly get her out of that scenario, but she's still held by a head yoke.
Thank you. And the other one that I've got just now is, what's your thoughts on kind of more novice cattle keepers having a calving jack, given that obviously inappropriate use of jacks will have a detrimental effect to the cow getting back in calf?
Yeah, so the idea of the calving jack and is to really help and assist, and I hope what I'm saying here our vet agrees with, but it's there as an aid. It's there just to give you that extra bit more strength to help ease that calf out. When you put it on and you get the strain on and you're really not getting anywhere, that would be the point to stop. And if you're not confident with using a calving jack, then again, that would be the point for me. I would be thinking, get the vet out, get a bit of help. If you don't have a lot of experience with calving and you're new to keeping cattle, is there any way that you could maybe get some sort of hands-on experience? A friend, a neighbour's farm. Have you got a friendly neighbour nearby that could come out to help you and assist with that one or two times that you use the jack for the first few times? Because experience is key, and the only way really to get experience is to get hands-on and either be involved in it yourself or watching someone else. I hope that sums that one up.
And a couple of wee colostrum questions.
Okay.
Asking for, if you can milk a cow's colostrum, how long can you keep it frozen?
I think it needs to be frozen, sort of straight away, in your sort of freezer bags, sort of your sandwich type bags with the zips on the top, keep it safe. And I would presume it'll last for. I don't actually, to be entirely sure, I don't know if there's like a use by sort of date for it being frozen, but as long as it's frozen, I would say as soon as it's taken off and it's kept frozen, it'll be as good as the day it was it was frozen. The key thing with the frozen colostrum, though, is to make sure it's thawed out slowly. You know, don't go and put it in the microwave to thaw it out, because you're just going to go and kill off all those antibodies.
And if someone's never used powdered colostrum before, where can they get it and what is it?
So powdered colostrum just is simply, it's an alternative to the natural colostrum. It's depending on where you get it from, you can get it from the vet, so sort of local stores, so like your Harbros, your Norvites, Towns and Carney, that sort of shops will all have it. And most colostrum comes in sachets or in an actual, I think there'll be a picture at the start. Sorry, I hope will be going very fast. There we go. So you'll see there's a cut just up beside the photo there, just beside the cabin jack, is calf colostrum in a milk carton, and there'll be a line somewhere on that milk carton to show you where to fill with your warm water, and it's just a case of giving it a good shake, and you're good to go. The directions for use are all on the colostrum, but you can get it from your vet or a good agricultural store.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sarah.